The House on Willow Road, a terrifying true story. I'm a 23-year-old woman, and I was hired to house sit for a wealthy couple I met through a friend. They were going to Europe for 2 weeks, and their large house sat alone on a wooded property off Willow Road. The house was fairly large, with tall windows that seemed to watch over the entire neighborhood surrounding it. It had an eerie charm, almost like it was hiding secrets within its walls. The couple, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, were kind but somewhat mysterious. They gave me a detailed list of instructions, including how to care for their exotic plants and feed their 2 cats, Whiskers and Midnight. I remember feeling a mix of excitement and unease as I drove up the long driveway. The isolation was both thrilling and intimidating. Little did I know those 2 weeks would be unlike anything I had ever experienced before. The first few days were fine, but by day 4 I started hearing strange noises at night. Floorboards creaking upstairs, faint taps on the windows. I told myself it was the old house settling, until one night while brushing my teeth I heard a cough behind me. I spun around. The bathroom door was open, no one there. I searched the entire upstairs, room by room, heart hammering, nothing. But when I got to the guest room closet, which I knew I hadn't opened, the door was ajar. I pushed it open with trembling fingers, empty except a smell, a faint sweaty odor. I barely slept that night. The next morning I called the homeowners, asking if they had anyone coming by. They said no, no one. The smell lingered in the air, a mix of sweat and something else I couldn't quite place. It was unsettling, like a ghost of someone who had been there recently. I stood there for a moment, trying to make sense of it. My mind raced with possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Had someone been hiding in the closet? If so, where were they now? That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, every creak and groan of the house amplified in the silence. My thoughts kept returning to the closet, to the smell, to the possibility that someone had been there. Sleep was elusive, slipping through my fingers like sand. I kept imagining shadows, moving in the corners of the room, the feeling of being watched. The next morning, with dark circles under my eyes, I decided to call the homeowners once more. My voice trembled as I asked if they had any staff or maintenance workers who might have come by. Their answer was a firm no. No one had been scheduled to visit the house. The realization hit me like a cold wave. I was alone, but perhaps not as alone as I had thought. 2 nights later, I woke up around 3 a.m. to the faint sound of breathing. Close. My bedroom door was cracked open. I was sure I'd closed it. In the dim moonlight, I could see something, a shadow right outside the door, standing still. I whispered, "Who's there?" The shadow moved fast. I slammed the door and locked it, shaking. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing in the silence of the room. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear any sound, any indication of what or who was out there. The breathing had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to stretch on forever. I fumbled for my phone, hands trembling, and dialed my friend's number. No answer. I tried again and again, but there was no answer. Panic surged through me. I glanced around my room, looking for something, anything, to defend myself with. My eyes landed on a heavy lamp on my bedside table. I grabbed it, holding it tightly, ready to swing at any moment. Minutes felt like hours as I stood there, waiting, listening. The shadow didn't return, but the fear lingered, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night, too afraid to close my eyes, too afraid to let my guard down. I tried my phone again, but this time to call the police. They arrived and started a search of the entire home. They found signs of forced entry at the basement door. Whoever had done this had been inside with me for who knows how many days. They never caught the guy. If this story gave you chills, you'll want to hear what's coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The House on the Lake, a terrifying true story. Have you ever wondered if you're really alone when you're sure no one else is there? What if the danger isn't outside your house but already inside, just waiting for you to turn your back? I was 27 when this happened. Just a regular guy, no stranger to being on my own. My cousin had asked me to house sit his lake house for a week while he went on a cruise with his wife. Easy money, feed the dog, water the plants, keep an eye on the place. The house was gorgeous, large, modern, right on the water, but the moment I pulled up the long driveway, I noticed how isolated it was. No neighbors in sight, just dense trees wrapping around the house and the dark, still lake out back. I remember thinking, man, this place feels too quiet. The first night went fine until around midnight. I was in the living room scrolling on my phone when I noticed the dog, a big golden retriever named Max, staring intensely at the back door. His fur bristled, low growls rumbling from his chest. I froze. The back porch was dark, and from where I sat, I could only see part of it through the window. Max didn't usually growl. He was one of those overly friendly dogs. I grabbed a flashlight and went to check. Outside, nothing. Just the cold night air and the sound of water lapping against the shore. But when I came back inside, Max wasn't at the door anymore. He was standing in front of the hallway mirror, stiff, ears pinned back, eyes locked on the reflection. I swear to God, it looked like he was watching someone behind me. I spun around quickly. No one was there. Just an empty, eerie silence. The next day came and I shook off last night as probably just nerves, right? Being alone in a strange house can really mess with your head, making you imagine things that aren't there. That night I settled onto the couch to watch a movie, with Max curled up at my feet. Halfway through the movie, the power suddenly cut out. Everything plunged into darkness. I fumbled for my phone flashlight, heart racing. I wasn't sure where the fuse box was, but I figured it had to be in the basement. I hated basements. They've always felt spooky to me, but I had no choice. The basement was cold and musty, the wooden stairs creaking under every step. I found the fuse box against the far wall. As I reached to open it, I noticed something strange. A faint draft on my face. I swept the phone flashlight around. That's when I saw it. The basement window was cracked open, just a sliver, enough to let air in. I was certain I hadn't touched it. I slammed it shut, locked it, and backed away. My skin prickled with that awful feeling like you're being watched, but you don't know from where or who. I popped the lights back on and made my way back upstairs, feeling uneasy. Around 2 a.m. I jolted awake to Max barking like mad. He was at the basement door, claws scraping at the wood, making an eerie sound. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the flashlight this time, creeping toward the door, hand shaking uncontrollably. Slowly, I opened it. The beam of light cut down the stairs, and there on the first few steps were muddy bare footprints. Fresh ones, still wet. I felt like the air was sucked out of the room. My throat tightened, panic rising rapidly. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and grabbed a kitchen knife. I backed into the corner of the living room, phone clutched in my hand, and called the police, praying they would arrive quickly. Every second felt like an hour. The house was dead silent, except for Max's soft, nervous whimpering. I kept glancing at the basement door, terrified I'd hear it creak open. Then I did. A faint, slow creak. I held my breath, staring at the doorknob, which was trembling slightly, as if someone was turning it, testing it. I felt sweat drip down my back. My pulse pounded in my ears. The knife in my hand felt useless, like a toy. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was frozen, waiting. Right then, the police arrived, pounding on the front door. I ran to the door, let them in. When they went into the basement, they found him. A man, filthy, barefoot, dressed in ragged clothes, hiding under the basement stairs. He'd been living in the crawl space beneath the house, sneaking in and out through the basement window at night. Watching. Waiting. I stayed awake the rest of the night, lights on, knife still clutched in my hand, trying to wrap my head around how close I'd come to being attacked, or worse, not knowing how long this guy has been living in my cousin's basement. Damn, it's easy to think that locking your doors is enough, but sometimes the threat is already inside, so the next time you hear a strange noise or feel like you're being watched, don't just brush it off. Trust your instincts. They might be the only thing standing between you and something or someone waiting in the dark to do you the worst. If this story gave you chills, you'll want to hear what's coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The Watcher, a terrifying true story. Have you ever wondered if someone was watching you? Not through a screen door, not across a crowded room, but right now from somewhere you can't see? Maybe through a window, maybe from just beyond the trees. What if one night you discovered you weren't as alone as you thought, and whoever was out there had been watching for a lot longer than you realized? This happened to me 4 summers ago, when I agreed to house sit for a family friend in their countryside home. I was 21, finishing my second year of college, and I thought a quiet summer alone sounded perfect. Easy money, a peaceful environment, no roommates, just me, some books, and the occasional drive into town. But looking back, I think the isolation was exactly why they chose me. The house was big, old, and surrounded by acres of unkempt fields and dense woods, giving it an eerie yet captivating charm. It had been in the family for generations, one of those places with creaky wooden floors and antique furniture, each piece telling a story of its own. The kind that smelled faintly like old paper and dust, a scent that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. I wasn't scared of staying there, not at first. The isolation felt more like a retreat than a threat. The nearest neighbors were half a mile away, and I figured it'd be peaceful. No late night traffic, no loud parties, just tranquility. Just the occasional sound of crickets and owls at night, a natural symphony that lulled me to sleep. The first few days were fine, almost idyllic. I settled into a routine coffee on the back porch in the mornings, reading on the couch in the afternoons, maybe streaming a movie at night, enjoying the solitude. But on the 4th night, something strange happened, something that shattered my sense of peace. I was getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth, when I noticed a faint flicker through the bathroom window, catching my eye. At first, I thought it was lightning, a common occurrence in the countryside. But when I turned off the light and looked again, I realized it was moving, not like any lightning I'd ever seen. A faint pulsing light, like someone was out in the field, waving a flashlight, signaling perhaps. I stared for a few seconds, confused and a bit unnerved. There wasn't supposed to be anyone out there, not at this hour, not in this isolation. I turned off the bathroom light and went into the bedroom, crouching by the window, watching intently. The light disappeared, leaving me with a sense of unease. I tried to brush it off. Maybe a hiker, maybe someone who got lost. It was easy to dismiss it as a trick of the light or my imagination playing games with me. But the next night it happened again. This time I saw more than just a light. There was a distinct shape of presence that sent chills down my spine. I was in the living room scrolling on my phone when I glanced out the window and froze. My heart skipped a beat as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. At the edge of the yard, just where the field met the trees, stood a group of figures. It was unmistakable this time, dark silhouettes against the night. They weren't moving. They were just standing there facing the house. The stillness was unnerving, as if they were waiting for something. I turned off the lamp, my heart racing. The darkness felt safer, like a shield against the unknown. I couldn't tell if they were looking at me, but it felt like they were. The sensation of being watched was overwhelming. I ducked down, crawled to the hallway, and locked myself in the bedroom. My mind raced with thoughts of what to do next. I called my dad, whispering into the phone. My voice trembled as I explained what I'd seen. He told me to call the cops. I hesitated, but then dialed the number, hoping for some reassurance. By the time they arrived, though, the figures were gone. The yard was empty, as if nothing had ever been there. The cops walked the property, shined their flashlights into the trees, but found nothing. Their search turned up no clues. Probably just some kids messing around, one of them said. Their skepticism was clear, but it did little to ease my fear. It's a big property, hard to secure everything. The vastness of the land made it impossible to feel completely safe. They left, and I was alone again. The silence of the night was deafening, and the sense of isolation was overwhelming. The next morning I noticed something that made my stomach drop, a feeling of unease washing over me. On the porch right next to the door were faint, muddy boot prints, still fresh, as if someone had just been there. They hadn't been there the day before, a stark reminder of an uninvited presence. I called the homeowners, trying to sound calm, though my voice trembled slightly. Asked them if anyone was to come by. They said no. I told them what was happening around the home. They told me to stay inside, keep the doors locked, and assured me they'd check in later. That night I double-checked every window and door, making sure everything was securely locked. I even dragged a chair under the doorknob of my bedroom, creating a makeshift barricade. Around midnight I woke up to a soft noise, like the sound of a door creaking open. They were in the house. I held my breath, straining to hear more. Slow, careful footsteps moving down the hallway, each step echoing ominously. I stayed frozen in bed, trying not to make a sound, my heart pounding in my chest. My phone was across the room on the desk, out of reach, a lifeline just beyond my grasp. The footsteps stopped outside my door, the silence more terrifying than the noise. I could hear breathing. Whoever was out there, they were just standing at my door, listening. Suddenly the doorknob rattled. I felt a surge of cold panic as the door shook once, twice, like someone was testing it. I pressed my back against the wall, heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. For what felt like forever, there was silence. Then soft laughs, as if they were mocking me and my fears. It was low, almost like a whisper, but I heard it. And then footsteps, retreating down the hallway. I stayed frozen for over an hour, too scared to move. When I finally worked up the courage to open the door, the house was silent. But the front door was wide open. At dawn, I packed a bag, got in my car, and drove. I didn't even tell the homeowners I just left. Later that day, I got a call from the homeowners, who had asked a neighbor to check on me in the house. They found the back door ajar, kitchen drawers left open, and most disturbing of all, a note on the dining table. It was written on the back of an old receipt. in shaky handwriting. The note read, "Nice place. Maybe we'll stay longer next time." I never went back to that house. I still think about it sometimes, about how someone must have been watching me, learning my routines, waiting for the right moment. It's the not knowing that gets to me the most. Who were they? How long had they been watching? And what would have happened if I hadn't locked that bedroom door? So if you ever find yourself alone in a country house, far from neighbors, far from help, just remember, you might not be as alone as you think. Stay safe out there. If this story gave you chills, you'll want to hear what's coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The Upscale House, A Tale of Terror. Have you ever stayed in a place so beautiful that it made you forget how vulnerable you actually were? Like the kind of house where every wall is glass, where everything is wide open, and you suddenly realize anyone watching from the outside can see everything. But you can't see them. I was 25 when this happened. A friend of my older sister connected me with this wealthy couple who needed someone to house sit for a week while they vacationed in Europe. The house was insane. 3 stories perched high in the hills above the city. Giant floor-to-ceiling windows in every room. The kind of place that felt like a modern art museum. They had smart locks, motion lights, an intercom, even a full security camera system, all of which they gave me access to through an app. I was told not to expect visitors, and that groceries would be delivered automatically. The first few nights were quiet, peaceful actually. I spent most of my time lounging by the infinity pool, ordering food, binge-watching shows in the home theater. But on the 4th night around 10 p.m., I was sitting in the living room scrolling through my phone when I decided to randomly open the security cam app, just to check. I don't know why. The feed for the back patio camera was dim. No lights were on back there. But I noticed something weird in the lower right corner. A shape. It was a person, crouched low, facing the house, not moving. At first I thought it was some glitch, like a shadow or something. But when I stared closer, I could see their arms slightly swaying, like they were breathing heavily. I stood up and turned on the patio lights from the wall panel. Then I checked the feed again. Gone. No person. Just the empty patio. Except the camera suddenly cut to black. No signal. I waited a few seconds and refreshed the app. Still offline. I called the security company immediately. The guy on the phone was calm, told me all systems were still connected on their end. Probably just a minor connectivity issue. I didn't sleep that night. I turned on every light in the house. I even pulled the couch into the upstairs hallway because it was the only space without any windows. Around 3:12 a.m., I heard it. The faintest sound, like glass cracking. Then again, crack. Coming from downstairs. I grabbed my phone and crept toward the top of the stairs, but everything below was pitch black. None of the lights I'd left on were still on. The entire first floor was dark. I backed into the master bedroom and locked the door. Then I went into the bathroom, locked that too, and whispered into my phone as I called 911. The operator told me to stay quiet and stay on the line. I remember just sitting on the cold bathroom floor, shaking, hearing my own breathing echo against the marble. Every creak of the house felt like someone moving. Every second felt like an hour. About 10 minutes later, I heard shouting, male voices, police. They found someone inside. A man was hiding behind the kitchen island. He wasn't a burglar. He was watching me for other wicked reasons. Nothing in the house had been touched. The front door hadn't even been forced. He had come in through a small vent window in the downstairs bathroom, the only one without a sensor. He had a knife and gloves. They questioned him. According to the officers, he'd been watching the house for at least 2 days. He'd been studying my movements, tracking what lights I turned on, what time I went to bed, where in the house I slept. He waited for the exact moment when the cameras glitched, or he made them glitch, to sneak in. I still don't know how long he was actually inside, or how close he got to me. All I know is when I look back at the patio footage the next day, the stills that had been saved before the camera went out, there were multiple shots, multiple angles, and not just one person. There had been two people, one crouched low by the patio, and another farther in the background standing tall, watching. I had only seen one. The police only caught one. Where did that second person go? Damn. What was their evil plan for me? I got lucky. After that, I never accepted another house-sitting job again, especially not one where the house has more glass than walls. Because when you're in a house like that, it's not you watching the world, it's the world watching you. If this story gave you chills, you'll want to hear what's coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss it.